This looks like a job for Superman.
Welcome to SuperPals. I'm Jared. I'm here with Robert. What's up, man?
Yo, I'm ready to get this debate going. There's a reason why we didn't start off with it because it would have been too obvious.
Yeah, Cameron says, "Hey guys, and oh boy, we never thought we'd get an episode like this." So yeah. So we'll talk about this. So we're doing the SuperWonder versus Clois debate. Which, let's be honest, Robert, if you and I are co-hosting a Superman show, this is gonna come up eventually.
That's why I said there's a reason why we didn't start off with this because that would have been too obvious, and we might have ended the show right then and there.
Yeah, exactly. A war. I love NJ. A war. Yeah. Well, here we go. So we're going to start off giving our introductions on like where we stand on this topic, just so like everything stands out. So I'll start. So again, I came in new 52, but I also read a lot of post-crisis after I got like my shoe in the door with new 52. And I had a fair exposure to both. The problem is when I was like reading, even post-crisis, SuperWonder was the one that really spoke to me more directly. And about real quick, what we're saying in this debate is hyper dependent on the writer. That's the baseline that we're going off of, and we both can't use the argument. It's always been.
No, we're definitely not using that.
Yeah. So I want to be clear on the rules. So essentially, so I gave both a fair shake, and it's like for the parts of Superman that I enjoy the most, Wonder Woman is the one that aligns the closest to that. And you know what? I've read great Clois stories. Robert and I have gone over on his channel great Clois stories. So I'm not saying that they don't have good stories. I'm just saying it's like, personally, it's never really been my thing. Robert, how about you?
For me, I came in with my very first comics I ever read were a handful of issues of The Funeral for a Friend. So I came right smack dab in during the Triangle number. It's always been the one I kept interested on. And I'm sorry for the dogs. They're barking at a squirrel. Squirrel! Hi there. Sorry. But anyway, as I was saying, for me, during that era, and I will get this into more detail as it went on, Superman, Wonder Woman rarely interacted. I was used to that. I saw them as just friends. Whenever I did see Super Wonder, it was mostly in the context of Frank Miller being the whole, why be with someone normal when he could be with someone who could take him? And that always felt off to me. Watching their relationship develop in post-crisis really made it feel like a strong relationship because it came out organically. It lasted a bit longer. The courtship lasted longer than it should have, but that was due to outside factors.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I never had anything against Super Wonder at all. I always liked that in Elseworlds. It just never felt like, and Superman Lois always felt natural to me.
Okay, and that's understandable, and that's fine. This is more like a conversation stuff. And then Randy's obviously on my side with Diana because there is a lot. Because here's the thing, my first ding against Lois, and I know you're gonna debate this with me, Robert, but it also factors into some statements that writers have made when. Like you get Tomasi talking about part of the reason why they put like that Lois and Diana scene in the diner in Death of Superman was because it's like, no, you should like Lois. You should be more aligned with this should be normal to you. So I'm like, that's where we get the whole, like they denigrate Diana or other characters to prop up Lois. I know it doesn't always happen, but that's like where that point comes from.
And I understand that. Trust me, the way it was handled by other writers after, like with Rebirth and everything, was very much a very poorly handled course correction. I completely understand that.
Yeah.
And And as far and yeah, that's all I would say. That I will not argue that at all. And I wasn't. And I'll say this: I felt something similar in many ways, like they were going out of their way to tell people get over Clois when New 52 happened. So similar type of thing.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the main reason why. And then we wonder which way Brit aligns on this debate. But Diana, it depends on the story of which faucets Clark wanted to be explored. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Honestly, both feel natural to me more. Look at
Yep. Hey, cameras on both sides.
yeah, he's neutral.
Yep.
Like, yeah.
I don't feel so ganged up on.
Oh, trust me, there's still time. Where's Zed? Zed will enter the chat soon and ask if Lois is dead. But anyway, but it's more like that's the first part where it really started to make me not like the character of Lois. And that's because of the way editorial has used her to prop up their agenda when it comes to Superman, whether or not it's like the whole human versus Kryptonian thing or the Diana thing. It's like she has been used. Now, it's not like all the time, but she has been used pretty famously. Like, let me put it this way. The few examples were the most like in your face, obvious examples to push an agenda.
All right.
And it's like, if you're using this character to push an agenda so closely, and it's like something that I don't want, but they're like, no, you need to want this. Look at her. It's going to make me not like her more.
I might disagree with reading it that way, but I can understand why you might look at it that way.
But yeah, again, I'm just going off of like the creators of themselves statements, because they've said stuff more aligned to that factor that's what they're trying to do.
No. The writer's statements and editor's statements I can understand. I'm saying if you read it in the books, I could what's in the book, I can find that easier to argue.
Well, yeah, of course, because it's all dependent on one's interpretation of this. But it's like the reason why I go off of like what the writers say, because that way you get the motivation. Because obviously you could read something different. Hell, I do that all the time with the Wonder Woman fandom. But it's like
I hear that.
Yeah, exactly. But it's more like it's more like I'm like, look, if you're making me do this, if I know why you're doing, it's like let me give you a good example. When you and I talked to Ernie about like Batman Hush and stuff, I understand the motivations behind the changes to the Hush story. Or when the other guys and I talked to Sam Liu and he brought up like why that first half was added on to the Killing Joke, partly because the Killing Joke is too short of a story for a 90-minute movie.
Agreed.
It's like once you understand like the creative reasonings behind some changes, you can either appreciate it more in that case or really hate it more in this case.
That's true. And my argument I could be making for when with some exceptions, when I see people doing writers handling SuperWonder, a lot of times it is for cash grabs or hype or things like that. With the exception of Charles Sewell's on the main SuperWonder book, I rarely ever saw it handled beyond anything beyond in my opinion, something shallow and just there for fan service.
Well, here's the thing. SuperWonder in general in the new 52 was done for that reason. And Britt and I have admitted this on the show because they didn't expect that book to get as big as it did.
Exactly.
It just happened to like blow up. But it's like, the other thing, and Britt brings up this good point. And this was a story written by Phil Jimenez. It's Wonder Woman 170, where it's Diana being used as a mouthpiece of why Clark married Lois, revisionisms and stuff. They do also use that. Well, take stories that like existed in post-crisis. This is all in post-crisis.
Yep.
And then they'll reinterpret them by having characters say, yeah, but he always meant you. He always cared about you. And
okay. Those stories, bits like that, I never care for. I will agree with that.
Or it's like, here's the thing with Immortal Beloved. Here's why that story is BS. So as far as that story goes, because I've recently reread it, they never know whether or not they could go back to Earth at that exact same point. And Clark is like, it'll always be Lois, even if she's dead.
Well, why not? Some people are that devoted. There are plenty of husbands who have been like, nope, doesn't matter. Even if they're dead, I'm not going to be with anyone else. There are many who are like that. Why give in?
I get it, but it's like,
I think that's also what they were going for, saying that if he thinks she's dead, he's not going to give up, even if he has an Amazon there with him.
well, the other thing is that has been used in other comics to motivate the whole, if Lois dies, he turns into a dictator.
Okay, can I get that out of the way? I call that BS, and I'm positive most writers at DC would consider that BS.
Oh, and I love when Grant Morrison said Injustice is horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, thank you. It's like, because when you look at it, that's all it takes to turn him evil.
Again, most of the writers, from what I understand, do not agree with that. And unfortunately, that's when you have anyone involved, like Palmiotti and Taylor, they were following orders.
Yeah, I know.
They were
And then,
following, yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you could do. Oh no, I hope you mean he would not do that. Oh yeah, good. When he corrected, but yeah, exactly. Injustice is a interesting Elseworlds. The problem is too many fans have taken it not as an Elseworlds because they're like, oh, that would happen in the main continuity too.
Oh, you know what? You know where I can debunk that? Armageddon 2001, where Lois died. They showed a future where they got married. She was pregnant. The kid kicked her and actually caused her a hemorrhage, and she died. Clark just decided, I'm leaving Earth.
Or
And he went to go bang Maxima.
well, yeah, or as you would. Or here's another option: Kingdom frickin' Come.
Yep, that too.
Lois dies in that. Yes. Now here's the thing: I'm not saying Superman would not mourn. Obviously, the man's gonna mourn, but it's like he didn't turn into a dictator.
Nope. All he did was say Lois died, and Clark Kent died that day. That's all he said.
And then it took Diana to bring that part back out of him.
Exactly. Which again, that's fine. That's why I didn't mind it in Crisis on Infinite Earth, the animated trilogy.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, and that's the
thing.
thing.
And it's sarcastic. That proves Wonder Woman is always just going to be the rebound.
So yeah, sarcastically.
Yeah, I did mean that sarcastically. I did mean it sarcastically.
Oh, yeah, of course. I know you. So I know you mean it sarcastically. But it's like, and Barry, the thing. So Orange Avenger says, even if Superman wasted the Joker in a rage, I've never been a fan of all it takes is one trope.
Yes. Or one bad day. It depends. That's the thing, though. One bad day doesn't mean one action in that bad day. It means a lot of stuff happening in that one bad day. And here's the thing. I can see Lois. If Clark lost everyone else, like Jimmy, Ma, Pod, he only had Lois. Lois would be one of the ones that would keep him still holding on to his humanity. I can agree to that.
Well, here's the other thing. Speaking of that, here's why Justice doesn't work. You ready? The kids are alive!
Yeah, exactly. If they had died, if they were dead before everything, and he lost everything in there, then yes, I can much more easily accept it.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I do agree with Britt to a degree that Clark Kent doesn't have to die because Lois died. Who he is isn't defined by her. Because here's why I agree with her. And this was true even in the John Byrne era. He was Superman before he met Lois. He was Clark Kent before he met Lois.
That's true. Well, no, he was. Just say he was Clark before Lois. He wasn't Superman before.
He was doing superhero stuff. He just wasn't called Superman.
True. That's true. Now I would say,
remember, he saved that space shuttle from crashing in Man of Steel.
That's true. Now I would say this: when it comes to Kingdom Come and Injustice, one thing I will give is that both had a lot happen right after losing Lois and everything. In the case of Injustice and Kingdom Come, you then had to he couldn't even give the Joker proper justice because Magog killed him, and then everyone said like, yay, let him go.
Or like in Injustice, Metropolis was nuked.
Exactly. Metropolis was nuked, and Joker was taunting him, and Batman was poorly handling everything.
Mm-hmm. And then Nemo says that the culmination of it, it was the culmination of it. But again, if Superman is that close to snapping and all it takes is things.
Unfortunately, Taylor then had to kind of say, oh, he was always that in controlling.
Which that is very bad.
That's very bad, but it's an Elseworld. That's the only way you can say. It's not an alternate timeline. It's an Elseworld where we still never got this Clark's upbringing.
Which is good. NJ says, historically, how strong is he mentally? It varies.
It varies. It very much varies. Sometimes he has a super brain. Other times it's more he thinks faster.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
Other times he's a normal brain.
Now, now we're gonna. So this is the other reason why I had a say in the beginning of this that our positions on this debate hyper depend on who was writing in the creative team, because obviously, because Robert and I have done streams before on this channel and on your channel about how some people want Clark to fully embrace it, to go back to pre-crisis, full on about the actually, you know what? Let's talk about post and Flashpoint, the evolution of this, because pre-crisis, it started off where like Clark and Lois were like antagonists.
To a point.
I think from what I remember seeing, it wasn't Schuster's plan to put Clark with Lois.
We will never fully know. We know that when it came to the K metal from Krypton, that their relationship was going to change. But if he was willing enough to do that drastic of a change, who knows what other changes he would have done if time went on.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't say for absolute certainty.
Well, we can, based on people that knew them.
That's true. That's true.
And they said, yeah, they didn't originally intend for it. They thought it was going to be a perpetual love triangle, but the marriage thing was never really in their cards.
A perpetual love triangle I can understand, because this was back in the day when status quo was God. Can we agree to that? This was back in the day where no matter what you did, everything was going to revert back to status quo or some semblance of it.
Yeah. So then you get and then eventually they like got together, and that was like where you get to
Earth 2.
Yeah, you get to Crisis and post-Crisis. And that is where they started to like build the relationship together. They started to tease relationships with Diana. That's the other thing I don't like, is like Diana was like used as like, here's the other woman. And I'm like, what?
To a point. Lana was also that way.
Yeah, but they always did that with one of the female characters. And I go, okay, how about you don't do that all the time?
I will agree with that. Yeah, sometimes they treated her like she was the Namor, the Superman's Reed, and Lois is Sue.
Now, to be clear, I'm fine with it happening once in a while, because it's like a story trope that you can do, but they did it way too much.
Depends. I would argue too much if you read it. Here's the thing: going by someone who went as it was going on, it wasn't that frequent. If you go and find issues, it can appear that frequent, but then you take into account how many gaps there were between those moments. It wasn't that frequent.
Okay, I can see that. Oh, and Robert dropped out. He's probably having internet issues. But yeah, so let's see what people say in the chat. Immortal Wonder Woman also touched it. Okay, here we go. And you're back.
Sorry, I crashed. As I was saying, when they have it be years, not years, like it could be like 10, 15 issues between it, and technically out of a universe, that was like a year.
Okay, yeah, I can buy that, but it's like. But it's like if you're reading it now as one continuous story, now it may
feel that way, yeah. But again, if you look at it from publishing release schedules, it wouldn't feel that way. That's always the downside of retroactively going over things.
Yeah, but the problem is like once it's published and it's like all collected, you have to look at it publishing wise goes out the window, because you're not gonna read an issue a month.
But when a person is writing, they're thinking more about just this issue and everything. Not always think about what came before, unless they're referencing what came before.
Well, maybe they should have like said, "Hey, we're referencing the love triangle with Wonder Woman way too much. Can we do something different?"
Coulda, woulda, shoulda. I understand.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, so that's the point there. And it's like, again, post-crisis had some good moments with Lois. I'm not gonna say it was all like it was all like hot dog water.
Exactly. And like I said, when you really look, I mean, you and I went over like almost a whole year of Superman with the electric blue stuff.
Which that was awesome. I love that part.
Yeah, but look at how the relationship was there, and how like you still showed Lois was still willing up to do stuff like going to the Atomic Skull to prevent a bloodbath from happening.
Well, again, here's the other thing. It's like with the electric blue, that was one of the occasions where like even Diana's patience would be tried by those two constantly arguing.
Yeah, I know. And the fact that Lois was able to barely handle it, you're like, bravo, woman, bravo.
Yeah, exactly.
Because she loved them that much, but even that love was tested. Like, and it's what they're saying. Hey, let's keep this going, just the two of us. She's like, oh no, I am not going to deal with you two permanently. No, do not even ask me of that.
Yeah, exactly. But again,
To answer Cameron, that's the interesting when you look at the love triangle. It was more Betty and Veronica, but it was Lois was the Archie and Superman Clark were the Betty Veronica.
yeah, essentially, yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it's like, so then you get to the new 52. Which,
Shall we talk about the Diana portion of throughout this?
Yeah.
Throughout all that, yeah.
So first, post-crisis Diana, her own book was awesome. Most of the time, it was awesome.
Most of the time, it was, but due to fight comes.
Yeah, and here's the thing: because they were edited by two separate editorial groups, of course that's going to lead to them being very separate, and Diana not playing maybe as large of a role as she should have in some of the Superman stuff. Or like being separate and feeling like strangers, even though they're best friends.
That I'll be honest, that didn't feel like a thing. They did feel more just like colleagues. The best friend stuff didn't come about till closer to Infinite Crisis when they were trying to build up the Trinity side. Because a lot of people did feel back then, where is this coming from?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people did feel like the whole best friend thing, yeah, it didn't really exist that well. They was just professional colleagues up until that point. Not saying I'm against it. I really liked it. But I go see why some people felt it was forced.
Right, I can say. Well, here's the thing: the whole Trinity concept is kind of forced when you really think about it.
Oh yeah, definitely. It definitely was forced. It's just like, of course, naturally, they're the Trinity. I mean, the fact that you had to have Brad Meltzer do issue 0 of Justice League of America to try and shoehorn the Trinity being together throughout all of history.
Yeah, even though I like that, but it's like, you can't, no.
Especially when you have that bit where you have Wonder Woman in the white suit argue about the deaths of Red Tornado, but it's like she had her amnesia by that point.
Yeah, exactly. Right, and NJ brings up Immortal Wonder Woman. So that brings up an interesting point about this, because as far as we know, so as long as the sun remains yellow, Clark will either be immortal or age extremely slowly.
Yeah.
Then you get to with Diana, who may be immortal at this point. So it's like, when you really think about it, unless you're Tom King and give Lois like immortal juice, it makes Lois is gonna die eventually.
Well, yeah, exactly, and I completely agree with that. And yeah, but now I think that was part of the thing with Immortal Beloved, and it gave the option at least that maybe he might get with Diana. Maybe he might feel content being like, I had the love of my life. Not everyone goes looking for someone new. Sometimes they feel content.
Yeah. Britt brings up Perez was one who had them as best friends in her book, but it wasn't in the Superman books for consistency. He also said he was basically going to rewrite Action 600, which was so forced.
It was. I mean, it's quite clear when you look at that. Byrne wanted to tell it's a 600 story. He wanted the story to be ending with Darkseid, not their date.
Yeah, and it's like that's why, again, this is why I said again, it's hyper dependent on who's writing it, because it will either be written well or very, very, very crappily, or like let me put it this way, not necessarily crappily. It's more like you're not addressing plot points that are already being set up because you don't want to tell that story.
That's true. And there's the other thing I should remind you about Action. For that brief time Byrne was on Action up until 600, when it then became a weekly afterwards, it was a team-up book, Superman and. So 600 was supposed to be Superman and Wonder Woman.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, and everything. And yeah, I just wanted to point that out. So again, there was other factors that went into that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, and you factor into that's kind of like, that's the point there. But it's like, now then you get to Flashpoint and New 52, because it's like, okay, so they basically
the first major reboot, the first major overhaul reboot.
Crisis.
And even Crisis was more loose still.
Well, New 52 was also loose. Come on.
True. Well, true. Okay, that is true. But here's the thing, though. At least with post-Crisis, a lot of their origins were in the past, with some exceptions.
What do you mean? All their origins were in the past.
Except Wonder Woman and Hawkman were in the present day, where their first appearance was present day.
Oh, okay. I see what you're talking about. That's
what I mean. Whereas with New 52, they were all starting fresh at that point in the present day, not trying to fit in anything from the past. In other words, we went in without a history of the DC universe to explain anything. We were told, nope, this is new.
Okay, I see. But yeah, so then you get and what in the Action Comics book, Lois was like more of like a close friend and confidant of Clark, and that was fine. She and Jimmy and him and Clark.
Yeah, that was fine. Yeah, especially under Morrison's pen.
In Superman, the Superman book, that's when she started to become more of like a female dog. Let me put it that way, to play it that way.
And they rubbed in your face like, see, she's dating someone else. Get over it, guys.
Yeah, and then you get yes, admittedly, the sales tactic of, hey, let's put because now here's the thing. To quote Jim Lee, now this could be him trying to revise history, but from what I heard from documentaries made of at the time, so the New 52 reboot came about because they wanted to like revitalize Superman because they thought a lot of his world had become stale. So they looked at it and they're like, okay, so let's look at the costumes. And that's how we got the armor and stuff. And then they were like, well, what if we undo the marriage to Lois? And see what other stories we can explore. And then Jim Lee admittedly said, yeah, so when we decided that he wouldn't be married to Lois, who's the next logical choice?
That's true.
So I'm like, that's the good point there. And it's like, when you listen to the reasoning.
Notice the phrasing, though. Who's the next logical choice?
Well, yeah, I understand that, Robert. Yeah, I know you really want to harp on that. But it's like, when you look at it, so that's what they kind of wanted to do. And yes, they did the book for sales reasoning and you could tell it was sales reasoning because the Superman Wonder Woman relationship comes out of literally nowhere with no setup.
Exactly. It's just like they just dealt with him. That was that the Cheetah one or the Villains one?
It was the one where they fought Graves, and then
Graves
just broke up with Steve.
Yep, and then just out of the blue, like there was no setup, and then out of the blue, they kiss and make out. It's like,
now here's the thing that does happen though. With people in stressful situations.
That's true, but when you look at it from a writing perspective,
oh yeah, from a writing perspective, it's like you could have at least, because here's the thing. It would have been nice if there was like backup stories of like in the Charles Sewell book that was like, okay, so let's put in like
fill in the gap,
hanging out and like hanging out. And
you had a 5-year gap you could have done.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the ding on that relationship in the New 52. It came out of nowhere. There was no, even though there should be set up, and that would be cool to see that.
And then even when they were dating, it just felt like boyfriend, girlfriend. They didn't really, until Sewell, they didn't do much with their differences.
And then Britt brings up, according to her argument, the next thing, he's referring to like the stand by Jim Lee. The next thing is only because Lois has the role as the love interest in the first place. Diana is not a love interest like Lois. That is true. It's not necessarily. So what she's talking about is like, because
That's true. And anyone else would have been no different. If they went with Lana or anyone else, it would have been no different from Lois.
And they would, yeah. So they were like, okay, so what's the, yeah, exactly. So it's like if they went with Lana, it would have been like, we're still in the same boat.
Yeah, so they decided, well, we're putting a bit, like, what if we put more emphasis on the super pairings?
Yeah. So, and it's like, obviously that worked for that version of the characters and stuff.
Oh, yeah, and I will say, agree to that. It works for the new 52 version. I am never going to argue that.
And here's the other thing. Robert, in
Mhm.
your opinion, did Superman and Wonder Woman being together in the new 52, I know the answer, I'm just asking you for rhetorical reasons, did that degrade Wonder Woman into just being Superman's girlfriend?
Once we got Super Wonder, and no, it did not.
Exactly, because it's like
Beforehand, it almost did.
you in the Jeff Johns book, it almost did, but then I feel like Jeff, like I
don't
had no
think
way of
he
knowing
did.
this.
He put them together, and he didn't know what else to do with them because it was just a sales bump.
Yeah, and then you get the Charles Sewell book, but even beyond that, other writers played with it briefly for story reasons. However, but it was like it was like occasionally she would show up in a Superman book for like a page to say, and he's dating Wonder Woman, and then
Or they have him imagine Lois as Wonder Woman.
Yeah, exactly. So then he would go off on his adventures. She'd go off on her adventures. She would be in no way denigrated. And I feel like people had that idea because some people had a superficial understanding of the Lois pairing. And they're like, that's what Lois is.
I'm not sure if I agree with that part.
No. What I mean, I'm not saying I believe that. What I'm saying is, like, I think that's where if Diana's with Lois, that's what. If Diana's with Clark, that's
a whole other discussion. That's a whole other
discussion with the Wonder Woman fandom. Trust me. But it's like.
You say that? That reminds me of the joke. Wait, you're not my husband, unless there's something you haven't told me about.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, that's the point. It's like, my point is like, I think the people that said, if Diana is with Superman, she gets turned to Superman's girlfriend, because from a surface level, that's what that looks like with Lois. Surface level.
Exactly. And again, it's the same thing like what happened with the spider marriage. Everyone kept thinking, all she's doing is being at home worrying. Although I will say there is a bit more evidence to that with the spider marriage. But with, like, people make that assumption with Lois, and yeah, like you said, and then when you actually look at it, you realize, no, it's not that simple.
It's a little deeper. Now, it is very easy for writers to fall into that trap that she is the love interest. And a lot from what I have read, again, I'm putting that addendum in there. A lot from what I have read has resorted her to that. So that's why I think.
Now, here's something that just dawned on me since I brought up the spider marriage. I hate to make this comparison, but you know about how the spider marriage happened, right? It was editorially decided and everything. Sometimes you got right, and a lot of writers left, like, refused to ever work on the character because of that pairing. Roger Stern was one of those people, and wouldn't come back until the marriage was dissolved. I give him props for consistency on that. And yet he was perfectly fine with the super marriage. But and yet with Superman Lois, that happened. They built up to it. With Superman and Wonder Woman, I can make the argument. You can make the argument that was similar to the spider marriage.
Yeah, you definitely could. It's like,
and that's why you have writers who didn't agree, but they were stuck with it.
Yeah, exactly. But then you had writers that I gotta be honest, I legitimately think Tomasi intentionally tanked the Superman Wonder Woman book. There was too many contradictions.
Oh, I won't argue that. Again, that's something that happened with the spider marriage too. There were plenty of people trying to tank that too.
Yeah, exactly. And by Jargon asked, how do you feel about Bart and Cal from the dark side? That was hilarious.
For an Elseworld, it was fine. I'm not a fan. And the Lois and Orion came out of nowhere because they barely interacted. But
yeah, NJ says, are there any old school writers at current DC who are SuperWonder shippers? Wade tolerates it because he doesn't like the marriage to Lois. There's a reason why most of his stuff, when he writes it,
he doesn't like it because he prefers the triangle.
Which I'm just saying he doesn't like it. So that's the point. But
yeah, but he has gotten better. He's openly even told me that he's no longer what he once was.
Well, then again, I'm sure it's helped that he has his own like the world's finest book where he doesn't have to deal with Lois.
Yeah, and yet he'll make references. Now he'll make references if they're in present day, of course. But he's like, I don't want to deal. That's why so many books he does are in the past where he doesn't have to deal with it, which is fine.
Yeah, exactly. And
I call that maturity. I call that maturity.
most of the time when I see people like it's like when I asked Ernie about it, what he had said is like, yeah, I prefer Superman with Lois, but I'll write Superman with Diana. Then I'm like, okay, I can. Well, he kind of has to. He was involved in the writing of the DC AMU.
Exactly.
Eventually, he's gonna have to write that. And then Britt says, it was a damned if you do, damned if you don't. If they were together, all the people would complain. If they have separate dealings, that's a problem somehow. Yeah, exactly. So it's like either way, it was like they were going to get heat either way.
And here's where I stand. Do we agree to this? Post-crisis Superman is with Lois. That is something that should stick with that one. New 52 Superman with Wonder Woman.
Yeah, but I agree with you on that, but it doesn't help when DC themselves like, he's not real Superman. What really happened is that real Superman split. And then like, he's not a valid Superman. And I go, screw you.
Yeah, that was, again, I agree. That went overboard. And when they did
the whole... Why I dropped comics. That's why I dropped comics in 2017 when Superman Reborn happened.
Yeah, and then when they said like it's true, like it's true and all that, that stuff was really, again, I will not argue that, but let's be honest. In the grand scheme of things, that lasted like an issue or two, and they just did that to force it in. Anything afterwards was not that bad.
It was the beginning of it was, let me put it this way, in all the books that I was reading at the time, because it was like Superman and Wonder Woman and stuff, it was like all like a kick in the nuts constantly. Oh, yeah. So that's why I dropped everything for 4 years until 2020.
Hey, like I said, I kind of felt that similar with New 52 rubbing it in, deal with it. They're not getting back together.
Yeah, and by Gandalf says, guys, I'm very new to comic collecting. If you buy the George Perez omnibus, is that all? All of his run is in 3 volumes.
Yep, and 3 volumes, 2 regular volumes, and the War of the Gods.
Yeah, now, well, actually, no, there is 3 just George Perez Wonder Woman.
Oh,
if you want 4. all the War of the Gods, you can, but like the Wonder Woman portion of War of the Gods will be in the omnibus for Perez.
Yep, but you'll be completely confused, lost.
Yeah, I would recommend buying the omnibus for War of the Gods as well.
Unlike, say, all of the Marvel events where they include tie-ins, those are not omnibuses are not needed. The War of the Gods was back in the era where all of the tie-ins were chapters of the event, so you needed them.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, yeah, and to your point, Robert, again, I will agree with you that like post-crisis, there's too many people. It's like, here's the thing. What I have always said is it's okay if you have your preferred version of the character, just as long as you don't treat that preferred version like they're the only valid version of the character. The reason why I went with that, and the reason why I loathe DC Rebirth in that corner of DC, because that's all it was. They were like, that's not valid. Diana being with Clark was too easy. And I go, since when?
I will agree with that. That felt way too much like a painful course correction. And I will not, again, dropping that aside, not faulting you on that one.
Now, the only Rebirth book that did it with a modicum of decorum was Trinity.
Yep.
When Wonder Woman goes, he's not the same man I love, so you don't have to worry about me.
Yeah, that was fine.
Yeah, I'm like, okay. That's why I defend that Manipul book to Britt, because I'm like, compared to the other bullshit, I think that was pretty tactfully done.
Because that's what it was. He's not the same man.
Yeah, exactly. I'm totally.
I don't know why everyone else was treating it like they were.
Well, because again, it's post-Christ Superman. It wasn't until Reborn that they did the whole, they were split.
No, I know.
Oh, and by the way, Britt says, at least still during New 52, there were some Clois stories out of continuity, unlike how DC acts. Like, well, that's the other thing. It's like, they're not even allowed to be. It's very rare that you find like SuperWonder in Elseworlds nowadays.
And by the way, to answer that one, are there current right with NJ's question?
Yeah.
No, most of them are in favor of Clois.
Let me put it this way: most of them are in favor of Clois, but at least the ones that I've talked to aren't like, no, it can only be Clois. They're like, yeah, I mean,
No.
Diana and Clark makes sense. If I have to write it, I'll write it. But it's like, I prefer Clois. And I'm like, you know what? I will take that.
Exactly. Basically, it's the status quo, and they're not pushing against it.
Yeah. Now, I would say most artists I talk to are, at least the ones I've talked to, are in favor of SuperWonder.
I think because that's much better to draw, which that's a bit of a bias, but I understand it.
Which, yeah, exactly. And I'm like, that's why I said, again, artists. That's why I clarified that point.
Now,
but yeah,
may I give one statement about why, and with I want to go back to one issue I've had when it comes to the SuperWonder, and you can give your issue overall with Clois. Like I said before, it feels too much like, for me, it felt too much like a power fantasy when it came to SuperWonder. When I've ever heard, whenever I think back to with Frank Miller's statement, it's always stuck in my head. Why would he want to be with someone plain and average like Lois? Why not go with Wonder Woman, someone who could take him? And that just always felt wrong to me. And when I see, not you guys, none of you guys, when I've seen some people when I was growing up talking about SuperWonder, it was just that. They felt like it was the most logical thing to go with because they're the powerhouses.
I'd see.
That was me growing up. That was me growing up.
I'm trying to find what that statement was.
It was in an interview. I believe the interview, it was an Up and Away, I think. It was somewhere. I do remember that. It was
because just so far, the only things I've been able to find is like.
It was, yeah.
He's the only time I've ever seen him address it is like, he's like, no, because it fit the story I was telling and stuff. I'm trying to specifically find that.
I have to find that interview myself, but I know because he was like, why? Why would he? When he at some point to the side, be like, why would he be with Wonder Woman, someone who could take him?
Yeah, but here's the thing. Here's a refutation to that, Robert. And Britt has a refutation. Superman in general is a power fantasy. And two, if he really thought that, he wouldn't have put the scene in after the Daily Planet comes down where Superman mourns for Lois like he was in love with her. I
always found that confusing myself. Now, I think he said this before Strikes Again, I think.
Yeah, so I would imagine he probably changed his mind and is like,
oh no, and I get that, but I'm just saying that quote always stuck with me. And yes, Superman's a power fantasy, but that also feels like to the power fantasy of so he must be with the other strong woman.
Here we go. Britt says he said basically his life is already extraordinary. Why would his love life be ordinary?
That's true.
It depends, but it's like. But it's like, again, I understand that. But here's the thing, Robert. To refute that though, it's always Elseworlds with Frank. Mm-hmm. So it's like that's not necessarily the way to think about SuperWonder in the main continuity.
That's true. And NJ, with Wonder Woman depends on the writer.
No, well, let me put it this way: Wonder Woman is 100% human because she's from Earth. Now, when you take it with the Clay origin, she is literally an Earth woman.
Mm-hmm.
Like, literally. And by the way, Randy says, why would Superman be with Lois knowing he has a lot of enemies out? Well, that's like any superhero that has a... Why would Batman be with Catwoman then?
And she's a reporter. You ready to tell me enemies reporters get, especially when they have someone like Intergang?
Yeah, exactly. They are giving Lois power. Now, here's the thing, though. It's like, why do they keep giving Lois powers?
This is the first time they've ever really fully given her powers since pre-Crisis.
Ever really given her powers? New 52, bro.
Okay.
That counts. That counts. They gave her powers.
Yeah, to kill her off with them.
No, but no. You didn't say the reasoning. Okay. You said to give her powers.
Okay. When have they done with post-Crisis Lois?
Let me see. Post-Crisis Lois gets... Hellbat suit, that counts.
Hellbat suit is not a power.
No, that counts. That's Batman's superpowers. That counts.
Oh, all right. There's a sec.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, but Hellbat suit counts. That's Batman powers. That is riches and armor and stuff.
Okay, that's fair. All right. How bad? So twice in her entire since '85.
And I'm trying to find it because I know that there are like post-crisis occasions where she does get powers
Okay.
in various times. The point is that does happen. So it's like it's not as rare as you think. Now the
It's not as
reasoning for
common.
it could be different.
That's true. And in this case, okay, let me put it this way. Has it ever been done to its full potential?
But then again, it's
Ah,
like
that's a fair question.
now define full potential though.
As in giving her the powers, actually seeing her handling them, how she would be with them, all of that stuff.
So now here's the problem with that, Robert. You then get the Clois fans, and again, I'm not projecting this onto you. I'm projecting onto the Clois fans. They go, by Britt is sending you the whole Frank quote, but
Mhm.
because when Williamson gave her powers, the Clois fandom was like, oh, she should keep the powers now because now she really understands Clark.
Okay. Oh, no. Okay. There's the quote. All right.
That's what you inevitably get to.
Fair enough. And look, I do understand that mindset, but that's also from a case of, again, and I get why there are people who don't understand pairing, Superman up with Lois. That's fine. Again, there are people who do that. There's a reason why you sometimes see the Superman type with it. We saw it in Dispatch.
Or it's like here's the thing, Supreme or like actually Omni-Man is not that example. It's like
No, Omni-Man is the lowest one.
Oh, the Utopian.
Yep.
So, I was like, I know this one more, but it's like the point is you do. Oh, actually, no, Mark Grayson.
Okay, fair enough.
But it's like, no, I understand that. I get that that's the point. And you know what? I wouldn't hate Clois so much if it hadn't been used. Now, maybe like erroneously, if you will. Oh, and by Britt says, Williamson actually said that Lois can understand him now, and also it's more fun than in-depth character study. He said it was more for fun and not for a character thing.
Yeah, I hear you.
And that was Williamson. He said Lois can understand him now, and I go, bro, that's not helping your argument, bro. But it's like the other thing. So to my point, now it's like for me again, I tolerate Clois. Obviously, I have to now, but it's like what makes me not like it now. Again, this is due to writers, is how it's used to shit on SuperWonder and the fans. Like again, when you have people call it fanboy porn, and I go, whether or not you believe that or not, Tomasi, you shouldn't be saying that to fans. And by the way, everyone in the chat, that's a direct quote from Tomasi on SuperWonder. So I want to be clear on that.
Again, I will never argue stuff like that. I won't.
Can Williamson secretly be a SuperWonder fan? No.
He's too much of a fan of the '90s.
Exactly. I was about to say he's self.
He brought back Lena Luthor.
Yeah, he self-admittedly said he's a child of the '90s. Oh, and Britt says also that's also a double standard of saying SuperWonder is eugenics, but Lois having powers praised and said they would have
okay.
Now.
First of all, I have never heard the eugenics part. I have not heard that before.
I can back up Britt.
How many of those?
I've seen that too.
How many of those are Clois twits who are obsessed and basically tried to live through Lois or something?
A few of the big Twitter accounts.
Again, I do not follow Twitter accounts. I just went off of whatever I interacted with fans before.
And that's why it's probably why you don't encounter a lot of the toxicity that Britt and I. And by it wasn't Tomasi, it was Jurgens. That explains it even more. But it's like, look, again, I understand the writer. I understand the writer having their preference or it being a certain way when that writer was active, like with Jurgens. I get that. But it's like, You should not be shitting on what other fans like just because it's
Oh, I
not your
agree.
thing. You could say it's not for me.
And Jared, we're kind of going in circles in this. I completely agree with you on that.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, so most of the creators are 90s fans. Not most of them. I'm not going to say
No, I won't say most.
of them.
Because Wade isn't.
Wade is not a fan. No, Wade wrote Kingdom Come as a response to the 90s.
Yep.
Jurgens is another one who craps on Superman by making Diana a lesser character than Lois.
No.
I think NJ is talking about that, like, news.
The Treasury.
Yeah, the Treasury.
But even that, he was hit by Cyborg Superman while being
and you went robotic, Robert.
Sorry, I was saying she was held by Maxima and hit by Cyborg Superman. And it's not like Lois can take a punch from him.
Mm-hmm. Was Jurgens the one that wrote Lois in the Hellbat suit?
No, that was Tomasi.
I knew if it was contrived, it had to be Tomasi.
Yeah, it was Tomasi. Jurgens did not write those. He usually gave her a weapon or something, but other than that.
And Cameron brings up a good point. Giving Lois powers degrades her, in his opinion. And here's the thing. It's fine for a story arc.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, inevitably, that's good. They've done that with Mary Jane. In fact, they're doing it right now. Every love interest has gotten powers at one point. Look at Carol Ferris.
Exactly. Well, Carol's been ingrained. That's why it's fine to keep it permanent.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's like she's with the green. The world is set up in such a way where you definitely could do that.
Her being Star Sapphire, she was more Star Sapphire than she was Carol for a long time.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like on that point, it's like the way I kind of see it. So the way I kind of see it is like and again, I know we're going in circles, but we might as well bring this up. The hypocrites that blast SuperWonder but want to give Lois permanent powers. The whole argument falls apart.
Those are idiots too. I will agree.
And to be clear, Britt and I have also encountered some SuperWonder fans that focus too much on the sexual exploits part. Let me put it to you that way. And those people do not make us feel any better. Trust me.
Right. Exactly. I said, I was saying, I think we had a pretty good discussion here about all this. We avoided the whole, it's what it should be.
Yeah, well, yeah, because that is hyper. All this was in the best way possible, bringing it up as factually as possible, and letting you, the people, determine how you guys like align. Because if either of us convinced you, go ahead. It's gonna be my chat, so I think I know where the chat aligns with me. But it's like it's all good people.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, obviously.
Yeah, and I will say the chat was very civil. I'm proud of you guys.
Yeah, because like I said, I am all for SuperWonder existing, just not the post-crisis main, with that particular version. That's all I would say.
This is what it was. Britt says Jurgens had Diana say Lois and Clark are true. Yep.
Yeah. Again, I will say that it's stupid. I will agree to that. That felt too much like rubbing it in and everything, and basically telling anyone who were fans, you're not real fans.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where I lost a ton of respect for Jurgens. Mostly Jurgens because he's the one that was the most vocal with that. Because it's like Robert, how would you like it if Charles Soule was out there going, Superman and Lois are meant to be together. Lois is nothing.
You mean SuperWonder is meant to be together, and then Lois is nothing.
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, and by Randy says, Robert, you're his favorite Clois fan because you're one of the few that's open-minded.
Trust me, I think there's more open-minded ones if you don't look on social media.
Yeah, and I want to be clear on this. That's why I brought Robert as a co-host on the channel that's known for being the most pro SuperWonder channel. I think if I didn't think he was open-minded, would I have done that?
Nope.
So they
Exactly. I accept and I am able to be with Jared because I know he respects my opinion. He's not all nope. It's Super Wonder or nothing.
Well, yeah, because it's like there's fans of either side. As long as both fans are respectful, that's all. That's always been the main thing for Comics League. It's like, look, if you're respectful, you could have any opinion on these characters. I may vehemently disagree with it, but as long as the disagreement doesn't go to toxicity, that's totally fine. I mean, we even had to remove someone because they were toxic.
Exactly. Exactly.
But I think that's a good place to leave it. And yeah, Robert, 100%. I think that this went very well, and we maintained a good, calm attitude. It was good, and yeah. So drop below in the comments your thoughts on Super Wonder versus Clois. I'm gonna play the Athena trailer once, and then we're going to do our outro. So let me play the Athena trailer.
My home has been invaded, my people slaughtered, and I could not do anything to stop it. Not again. I will not lose another home, another family. I am Princess Lyra of the planet Sutragar, Athena, the goddess of thunder, and this is my story.
All right, so Robert, where can we find you, and what have you got coming on your channel?
Links down below, and I'm going to be starting streaming Dispatch tonight. An episode every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Sorry, NJ. The one thing Robert and I agree on is that it's Blonde Blazer for life. And then Britt goes Robert School. Yeah. So I'm gonna be on the Fusebox YouTube channel, and to promote like Athena. I'll even be on the vodka stream this week, and yeah. So I'm just doing a lot of heavy promotion for Athena. The Wonder Woman Wednesday this week is going to be on my Wonder Woman Hot Takes. It'll be a collab with Britt. I don't think we've picked an Under Two Capes topic, but we'll get back to that. And Comics League Dark, obviously. And then Super Wonder, Britt and I are going to be comparing Superman and Wonder Woman to Supreme because he does have a Amazonian girlfriend. So we'll talk about that. And then for movie night, we're talking about Black Adam. Oh boy, is that going to be a roller coaster. And as I hyped up last Sunday, this upcoming Amazon Answers, I'm going to go through every issue of Tom King's Wonder Woman and talk about why it's horrible. Like every single thing gets wrong down to the slightest detail. And by every issue, let me be clear, Trinity is included, and the Trinity one shot that had her punch her mom in the face, that's included. So its entire time on Wonder Woman, I'm going to tear it apart.
Yay!
Obviously, that's gonna be really fun.
Yay!
So stay woke, everyone. Oh boy, does this feel relevant to say this? Lois Lane is Lois Lane. She belongs to General Zod. Zois the Maxibat for life. I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.